So today we're going to actually uncover the science of setting intentions that not only inspire but also transform. So stay tuned as we decode the art of making resolutions that really work. Hello and welcome to Mindful Chatting, the place where we dive deep into the art of personal growth and setting meaningful goals. I'm Kristen, and today we're discussing a topic that's on everyone's mind as we approach the new year, and that is navigating through those resolutions and really setting ourselves up for success. Because let me tell you, don't we set all the greatest intentions and resolutions in the beginning of the year, and they just fall short a couple months in? But before we dive in, remember, you can find all these links and all the affiliate links and the full transcript of today's episodes in our show notes. I find this topic to be really relatable and also something that I struggle with. And I think we all do, because as we close out the year and we think about what we want to do in the beginning of the next year, we have all these great aspirations for ourselves, and we think that we're going to do all of these things different. And it's natural, I think, to think this way. And I think as the new year rolls around, it's natural to think about fresh starts and new beginnings. And many of us will scribble down those resolutions, hoping that this year will be different and that we'll stick to them. But let's be honest, how often do we actually follow through? I remember a lot of resolutions that I picked in the past that just fell short a couple months in. And then we tend to remember them by the end of the year and go, oh, yeah, I didn't do that. But today, I really want to focus on how we can explore why that is and how we can start setting intentions that not only inspire us, but also are sustainable so that we can actually fulfill the thing that we want to all year long. But we first have to start off by reflecting on the past year. I find reflection to be a really powerful tool, for really anything that we do. And this part of our life is no different from that. And I think reflection allows us to acknowledge our triumphs and really understand where our challenges were. So before we get into the new year, I really want you to start reflecting on what happened this past year. So I want you to ask yourself, what were your biggest achievements last year? Those tends to always stick out of what did I do this past year? And how did I accomplish that? But then I also want you to think about what challenges did you face and how did this shape your goals and your achievements that you did? Because we all have barriers and things that stop us from achieving our goals. But how did we manage those challenges and those barriers this year, or really this past year? And how did it shape you moving into these achievements? Because you got these things done. And so what was it? What was about your tenacity and your perseverance, and what made it different over this past year? I think taking stock of these can really set a realistic foundation of what's to come for your next year, because every journey has its ups and downs, and it's really important to recognize both. And I think also reflecting on what you went through to get there shows you also that you can do it, because we're going to face probably those same challenges coming up to this new year. But how you persevered, how you moved through them, and you can take a lot of those same, strategies and struggles and things that you did and apply them to this next year. So I've never really been a fan about the term resolution, because resolution to me really sounds like a beginning, middle, and an end. I solved this, it is done. And I think we should always be looking at ourselves as people as always evolving and always changing. And we're never really done, we're never really resolved. And so I like to break this up more about setting intentions than resolutions, because setting intentions, is more about cultivating a mindset about this next year. And that's a lot more attainable when you think about your goals. So when you're setting up these smart goals and these things that you're doing, I really want you to think about what's my mindset walking into each of these goals that I'm setting for myself? And what kind of mindset do I need to be in? Or what kind of person who achieves this goal, what kind of mindset do they have? And how can I cultivate that? I also think resolutions tend to be really rigid, and then when we slip up, it feels like we failed. And when we have this internal sense of failure, we don't necessarily return back to our original goal, or we feel like because I've misstepped or I've made a mistake or because I failed, I can't go back. And then we wait for the next year to start all over again. But I think with intentions, um, they set this idea that they're always something that I'm striving for, and you can't necessarily fail. So, for example, instead of resolving to lose weight, we can set an intention to nurture your body with good food and movement. Well, that's really hard to really fail completely. Because if I'm just focusing on the intention to nurture my body with good food, yeah, there may be times where I may slip up and eat a piece of cake, let's say, but there are going to be some times probably in that day or that week that I do actually nurture myself with good food. And same thing with movement. Movement, you really can't fail. We always should be moving, right? So maybe I didn't go and have a workout that day, but maybe I did take a walk at lunch. And I think there's this idea that I'm always striving to be the best person I can be for my moment. And if we're trying to strive for that, we can't fail at that. And so I think this small shift in changing from resolution to setting intentions is a big shift in perspective that we need to take as we go into this new year. I do want to talk about change because even though we know that the change that we're about to do in this new year is good for us, change is scary. And change also elicits uncertainty. And the feeling of uncertainty is super uncomfortable. And we need to recognize that before we make a change. And that always happens regardless if the change is good or positive. Going into that, change is also constant. And uncertainty is a part of life, but is also a part of change. And so instead of fearing it, I want you guys to think about how can we learn to navigate it? And also navigate it with grace, right? Because we are going to fail, we are going to stumble, and we're not always going to do it in the way that we want to. But how can we learn to embrace this idea that there is uncertainty and there is uncomfortability with change? And I want you again to think about the strategies that helped you manage those unexpected changes in this past year, because I think that mindset, again, that mindset and that intention is super important to cultivate again in this new year. And maybe it was mindfulness or perhaps reaching out to friends during those tough times. And these tools aren't just coping mechanisms, they're stepping stones to that resilience that you're really creating, which is cultivating that mindset that we're really looking for. I really also want to talk about self-compassion and goal setting. And I'm going to do a podcast probably just on self-compassion within itself, but self-compassion. So compassion in that word means to relate to our suffering. And then when we add the self-compassion, we are relating to our own suffering. And I think this is super crucial when you're goal setting, especially when we face those setbacks. And we are our hardest critic on ourselves. And that's sometimes a common reflex for a lot of people, is to just be very critical and to beat ourselves up if we make mistakes. But that self-compassion will actually lead you to better outcomes. And self-compassion is about treating yourself with that same kindness that you would offer a friend. If a friend calls you up and says, "Oh, I didn't wake up and work out this morning," you wouldn't tell them "Well, looks like you failed your goal." I mean, that would not be very helpful to your friend, and your friend probably wouldn't want to call you, right? Usually the things that would come out and be "Oh, that's okay, you can do something later today," or "It sounds like you had a hard morning, maybe try again tomorrow." And just approaching this same mindset for yourself can make all the difference in how you approach those goals and handle all of those mishaps, because they're going to happen. We have a lot of days in the year and a lot of opportunities, but we also have times where we're not always going to show up and we're always going to struggle, and that's okay. And I think expecting that going into a goal can help us think about the barriers so that we actually set realistic goals and that we actually achieve them. So before you set this goal, and I know you're probably like, I already got one, and I'm sure we all have this kind of idea of what we want to work on. I want you to step back before you set that goal, and I want you to think about what habits you actually need to create before you set the goal. And we just think about the goal. We don't really think about what kind of process or routine or things that we need to set ourselves up with in order to actually be successful for the goal. So you can think about like your bedtime routine. If your goal is to like wake up and work out, your bedtime routine the night before is so important, and it actually sets yourself up for the next day. Because if you are not setting up a good bedtime routine and you're not thinking about how you're sleeping and you're not setting those clear boundaries with yourself, you're not going to wake up the next day to work out. And that's a barrier that you have to think about. So setting a good process, like a good bedtime routine to where you go to sleep naturally at the same time every night and get good quality sleep, sets you up so that you can actually attain the goal that you're setting for yourself. These habits like actually form the bedrock of your personal growth, because when really big stuff happens in your life, if you have a good routine to follow on, you will fall back to your routine. And we want it to be, something you don't think about, something that you just fall right back into. And that creates this certainty in an uncertain space. And so speaking about personal growth, we also want to think about focusing on something that's continuous. So like every small step forward, no matter how small it is part of that transformative journey. Because again, we're trying to create a mindset, an intention of who do you want to become so that the habits fall into place, so that the goals are obtained. And that's where we become the best version of ourselves. Really good way to kind of enhance your ability to monitor and like stick with your goals is a planner. And I know people kind of balk at planners, but it's okay to use a planner to help you stay focused. And I love doing techniques like time blocking and habit stacking. And I think those are a lot easily monitored in a planner. And I have been through so many planners throughout my life, and I've actually stuck with one throughout an entire year. And I was very proud of myself, because I'll tend to get bored and move on to a different planner. And it's really because I was really pushing myself to fit a planner instead of finding a planner that fit me. And so I found the Clever Flocks planners, and I love these planners. I'm really into doing an appointment time because I like that time blocking. And so Clever Fox planners have different types of planners, but they do have an appointment time schedule, and it's on 15-minute increments. And so it helps me plan my daily routines. It helped me set those like habits and those processes so that I can be very successful. And what really kind of sets this apart for me is that they have these reflection pages, and every month they want you to look back on your month and like see how well you did. And it has weekly and monthly review sections depending on the type of planner you choose. And that just helps me plan ahead and reflect on how am I doing on my progress and what didn't go well and how can I adjust. And I think that's super important, because we can just kind of go on autopilot and not realize that like we could be doing something a little bit different or a little bit better. Plus, I love the quality of these planners. Like they are like pretty top notch. They have like a heavy bound, and the pages don't bleed through, which is super nice. So if you want to get really into your planners and write a lot into it, and also provide sections for like note taking and like brainstorming. And I think that really like helps you stay focused throughout your week. I'll have a link in the show notes for the Clever Flocks planners, but they are great and I would definitely recommend them if you're going to do any kind of goal settings. I love great tools that help make this process like so much better. And so, speaking of tools that really help with this personal growth, I love Brain FM. I've been using Brain FM to help enhance my focus when I'm working on my resolutions, when I'm doing therapy with my clients, when I want to focus on transitions or I want to focus on and hyper focus on something, if I want to sleep, if I want to relax, you know. So, Brain FM is designed to boost your productivity through this music that's really engineered to align with your brain's wavelengths. And I can see a difference a couple minutes into just a segment because they make these segmented timeline of music that's supposed to enhance those brainwaves so that you actually work more productively. And I can see a huge difference. And I would love to share this with you because I think this is a really great tool that if you struggle within a particular transition or part of your life, using Brain FM to help you get more focused in what you're trying to obtain can be a life changer for you. So there's a link in the show notes. And I just want to let you know that this has been really super helpful and I would definitely recommend it. I really want to thank you for tuning in and I really want you to visit our blog. I'll put that in the link in the show notes. And this has a lot more into this subject if you want to dive a little bit deeper and give you some more insights. There's also going to be links in the show notes along with our Pinterest account, Instagram, our Facebook page, TikTok, where you can follow us for kind of daily inspiration. And then we kind of dive into this topic in a little different ways on these different platforms if you're very interested in this particular podcast and this particular topic. Plus, also share this podcast if you found it helpful and really subscribe for more episodes like this and let us know what you're interested in seeing. So, and next time, keep moving forward one intention at a time. Please note that this podcast includes affiliate links, which means I may receive a commission if you make a purchase through these links at no extra cost to you. I only recommend products I truly believe in and use myself and will actually think benefit you. Your support helps keep this podcast running.